of Decree 34, how many of them would be able to? How do you kill for what you don't even understand? Now, it was genocidal because of the nature of the killings. It was vicious. At this time, or soon after this period, my family had escaped, first from Kaduna and then Lagos, back to the east, and refugees were coming from the north, and their stories were consistent of people's eyes being gouged out, people cut in half, being beheaded. And even when the people agreed to leave, they went to the motor parks, they went and waited for them and slaughtered them. They went to the train station. So it just wasn't about killing. You see, all you need is a stab wound or a bullet to the head. But when you start gouging out eyes or ripping the wombs of women and ripping out children from their wombs, it's something else. It's not just about killing. Now the war provided another channel to achieve what hadn't been accomplished in the massacres in the north. And like I said, wars lead to destruction, but wars also have rules. You see, Hitler is not accused. Nobody accuses him of any crime when it comes to German soldiers fighting against British or American soldiers. His crime is what he did to civilian Jews. Now remember that genocide doesn't involve a one-time massacre of people. It is a continuous process that seeks to destroy in several ways. Before the war even started, the authority of Igbos in the military was completely eliminated. Now remember that the Igbos were trailblazers, and many other people from the southeast. At the end of the war, I'm not even sure if there was any Igbo officer that was up to the rank of major. I think perhaps most were captain and down. Those that were reabsorbed to their pre-war ranks. That is why someone like Bitu Kiwe served under Babangida, that he was higher in rank too before the war. He was the equivalent of a captain in the Navy, that's a lieutenant, while they were lieutenants in the army. He was higher in rank than them. Families were destroyed. The fragmentation of the East was accomplished, which was part of the reason why states were given to us. I said yesterday, nobody gave me Southeastern State because they loved me. It was so that I would hate you. So that was accomplished. We don't have to go into abandoned property, or the 20 pounds, or the fact that at the end of the war, we didn't have a political voice. So our communities were decimated. Genocide is about destroying lives, not just killing people. It is about keeping people down in several ways, educationally, politically, economically. At the end of the war, they had control of the oil industry, political power, economic power, and military power. That's a lot. However, one of the things a war criminal hates is to fail in his attempts at genocide. You see, during the war, the survival of Biafrans infuriated and frustrated our enemies. And after the war, from nothing, the people of Biafra have rebuilt themselves and now excel in academics, business, the arts, literature, technology, IT, sports, and so forth. I don't know if any of you have followed news on the cut-off marks that are required for someone who takes JAM from Kano State and from maybe Imo State. Let's not even go into that because we'll be here all day. But you know what I mean. So it infuriated them. You know, it infuriates those who meant to completely subdue and dominate you and myself, and that is our victory. And this is also why any mention of Biafra, even as a subject of history, causes them much anxiety and rage. Now, with the way things are today, it is safe to say or to suspect that at least segments of the Fulani population have not entirely abandoned their mission of conquering and dominating. Today, we also need to be aware that they have more resources available to them than they've ever had, including the sympathy of extremists who practice the dominant religion practiced by the Fulani, which is Islam. Again, I'm not indicting the faith. You know the KKK in the United States, this white supremacist group, is a Christian group. So when we condemn them, we're not condemning all Christians. And so I just want that to be noted. If, God forbid, there's a war, rest assured that there are many out there who are not necessarily Fulani who will turn against us because they share something in common. And that is the fact that they see us as infidels. Okay, I'll move on. After that break in transmission, let us recognize the power and international influence of the Fulani. More heads of state in Nigeria have been Fulani. Salah Mohammed, Yaradua, Maru Yaradua, Shagari, and of course in modern times, Buhari. We also have in Nigeria the largest number of Fulani. There are probably about maybe 12 to 15 million, but in reality they are a minority group. And we need to stop talking about Hausa Fulani. Nothing like that exists. As a matter of fact, not a single Hausa has been head of state in Nigeria. So they are really a minority group, perhaps about the population of the Ijaw people. Now here are some other facts. Who's the president of Senegal? Macky Sall, Fulani. The president of Gambia, Adama Barrow, Fulani. The vice president of Sierra Leone, Mohamed Julde Jallow, Fulani. The prime minister of Mali, Babou Cissé, Fulani. And who is the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina J. Mohammed from Nigeria? There you go. The President-elect of the United Nations General Assembly, Tijani Mohamed Bande, and the Secretary General of OPEC, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Mohamed Sanusi Bakindo. What oil is produced in his land? Well, like I said before, nobody has to come and occupy your land or my land to take away our resources. There are different ways of occupation. At the end of the day, however, this is not necessarily just about the Fulani and Fulani herdsmen. On the issue of genocidal acts of destruction during the war, our reactions. We should be angry, but we should not be restricted to anger and vengeance. First, we need to be armed with knowledge. Because if you don't understand the history of the problem, how do you address the problem? And like I said yesterday, even as we look to the possibility of geographical autonomy, first of all, we need to advocate and rely on the Biafran spirit. If you don't have that, I'm sorry to say, I'm not insulting anybody. If you don't have that and you're wearing an emblem, it's like a Christian or someone wearing a crucifix who's a murderer and a liar and a rapist. I don't believe that's what we are. So the Biafran spirit, let's try and list some of them. Creativity, invention, diligence, service, togetherness, fearlessness, integrity, hard work, self-sacrifice, resilience, and determination. I would like to start from there, because those are noble qualities that will ultimately determine how we function as a people and as a nation. We also need to start arguing that we were being pushed away. We were not separated. You see, we need to be careful about buying into the mindsets of other people. The Jewish people packed their bags and left Germany. Has anybody ever referred to them as separatists? No. We must also, we said this yesterday, don't allow them to make you describe this experience, the Biafra experience, as an Igbo experience. Definitely, Igbo people were the primary victims. The Igbo people are virtually the only ones after the war that have been bold enough to keep the story alive. I agree. And the Igbo people suffered perhaps more than any other group of people. However, minorities so-called, and I use that term very loosely, were significant, played fundamental roles in Biafra from the beginning to the end. Whether in leadership positions or whether as foot soldiers, however you want to look at them. My own father's younger brother, Gabriel Linton, was a sergeant in Biafra. So this is not about Igbo people rising up and trying to disrupt Nigeria and create disunity and dominate everyone, including the minorities around them. But you see, that's the narrative. We don't want to accept nonsense because we're smarter than that. This is also not the time to isolate ourselves. Nothing will be achieved if we isolate ourselves. This is the time to regain pre-colonial interconnections with ourselves and our neighbors. This was the substance of my talk recently in Enugu. We need to be willing to engage in the exchange of ideas with those who disagree with us. We may have disagreements with our own brothers and sisters, but they are not our enemies. Disagreements don't make us enemies. Those who are your enemies are those who want to destroy you and historically have proven that they want to destroy you. Focus on them. Don't focus on your brothers and sisters. We're asking you So please, it may take a lot of readjusting to understand that disagreements, even with those who disappoint us, are not our enemies. We can't start making enemies of our own people when we have a bigger problem. That enemy is only going to take advantage of our inability to get on with one another. They did it in the past and they'll do it again. So there may be people we disagree with, maybe blue or white collar workers, they may be governors, they may be chiefs, they may be politicians, they may be all these things, but I would hesitate to make them my enemies. But I'm also not letting the leaders and elders off easily. Because if you're a leader and you're an elder, when you see people agitating, people are uncomfortable about things, and people are demanding self-determination, just because you disagree with them, you don't turn around and try to silence them and condemn them, dismiss them, attack them, punish them, or even kill them. That's not the nature of the leader. Those are not the qualities of a leader or of an elder. What you do is you engage them and you reassure them and you enter into dialogue with them.
Yes, sir.
So you are not innocent yourself, leaders and elders. Please, we've been told that we are enemies. Job people, Ikwere, Fike, Jagam, Ibibi, and others. We are not. We have lived next to each other and shared so much in common for centuries in terms of food, clothing, arts, language, spirituality, music, dance, you name it. To defeat the current epidemic of violence that is coming closer and closer to us, to overcome our political and economic challenges, we cannot isolate ourselves and must work together, otherwise we could be victims of another genocide. It may appear far-fetched, but nothing is impossible. I want us to refer to what's often, and I referred to it yesterday, what's often referred to as the 1929 about women's riots. This revolution in 1929 may have started around about, but eventually from one end of the eastern region to the other, all women were involved. And I said my own grandmother participated in that movement, and she was an Igbo woman. These women didn't have money, they didn't have power, they didn't have guns. What did they have? Unity. That was their power. Wow. Think about it. Today, if there were a crisis, and maybe some ethnic women tried to gather women from the eastern region, Ikwere women, Ibibio women, Anan women, Igbo women, will it work? No. Something has happened. And we need to restore to ourselves what we had before. And so, these women succeeded in getting the colonial regime to change a number of its repressive taxation policies. Another thing I think we should start doing is looking for other ways to connect. You see, language, culture, those are natural. But those are not the only ways to connect. As a matter of fact, if some of us sitting down here are honest to ourselves, some of the most devious things that have been done to us have been done to people in our own communities. I'm not saying don't connect with people from your communities. I'm saying let's look for other ways. You see, there are many other ways we can connect. We can connect through the interests that we share. Some people may be interested in Oracle. Some people may be interested in building cars. If you're interested in anything, you're not limited by ethnicity. You'll see someone at the end of the world who is interested in that same thing. So I would like to encourage us as we move forward to consider diversifying the methods by which we connect with other people. If we limit it to just language and culture and who looks like me and who sounds like me, we're going to keep limiting ourselves. This one is a little tough, but I'll say it. You know, when my father, when they went after him in Kaduna, and he eventually escaped in disguise, this was during the second coup, a lot of the people who helped him were not Ibibio. They were northerners, his brigade major, Major Obemudia, who later became a governor. You see, I can't ignore some of those sentiments. It's a reminder that even when we talk of our enemies, we should take a step back and say, well, even within our enemies, there's some that have a good heart for us. I met a man recently who's passionate about protecting women in Chibok, young women. You remember that's where they kidnapped about 200 of them some years ago. I don't even know what language this man speaks, but I immediately connected to him. Because I have 3 daughters. And so when I see someone passionately working towards the protection of the sacredness of young women, I'm immediately connected to that person. So let's diversify the means by which we connect to other people. I'm not saying we should be foolish about it. Let's be wise about it. Now, whether it is past genocides or the potential for future genocides, we must also stop isolating problems. You see, at some point in Nigeria, Abacha was a problem. At some point, it was Boko Haram. At one point, it was military dictatorships. But we can't isolate.